When you buy a used car from the dealership, you're taking a little bit of risk. And the more expensive the car is, the more risk you're willing to take. Luckily, for me, I was able to see Carfax on this car, and I was able to see if it had an accident before, and I was also able to see the previous services that were actually done by the dealership. I knew I was taking some risk given that this car had 4 previous owners. I decided the risk was minimal and I was going to buy it. However, it did come with some surprises, and the dealer had no clue. The dealer did not have any idea that this car was modified. Luckily, the previous owner did reach out to me thanks to YouTube. The guy really liked this car. He did a lot of very nice modification. One day, he left a comment on YouTube and he said, "Oh, that's actually my old car." I was skeptical because I had people before say they know the car, although they did not. But he continued to tell me the modification on the car, and then I went and looked at the car, and sure enough, those modifications were there. He did a full body PPF, so the whole body has paint protection. That's not cheap. It will cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to do a full body PPF. So the paint on this car is immaculate. There are a few places that have some chips, like on the corners, but that's an easy fix. He did change the brake pads on this car, but they're too noisy. They're like race pads, so I might have to change those. While we are still here, he did do coilovers all over the car. Mind you, this car came with race suspension, and those suspension were about $2,500. It was an expensive option. But he took that out and he put nitron suspension on here. But it's hard for me to say if it improved the car. Eventually, I would like to drive a stock 4C and compare it to this and see if those nitron suspension actually changed or improved handling on the car. But it does not stop the car from wandering around. This car will still tram line every now and then. I think it's a little bit better than stock, but it's definitely there. So it's a car you have to drive basically with your both hands on the steering wheel. These cars are known for tram lining, so they wander around the road. They follow the grooves on the road, and it feels like the car wants to just go in a direction. So you add blocks on the suspension points to add camber or to add adjustability to the suspension. So the previous owner already installed those. I was going to do those, but thanks to him, they are done. I actually wanted to drive a stock 4C for a while, get used to it, and then do the stage 1 tune and see how it changes the car. When I received this car, I was driving it and I thought, wow, for 240 horsepower, this car is quick. You know, it's aggressive on the bottom end. You lose traction when you take off. To me, I just thought that's how 240 horsepower should feel like on a lighter car. Now it makes sense that the car is making way more power than 240 horsepower. So this did come with AlphaWatt ECU, and it changes the dynamics of this car. It takes the power from 238 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque to 280 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Also, the ECU cost about $1,300. But living in California, I wanted to buy a separate ECU so I can keep the stock ECU to pass California emissions. So there was high likelihood that this car was not going to pass California emission, but thanks God it passed. It'll pull from any gear. The only thing with the fast gear is a little bit too short. You hit the left limiter very quick. So when I received this car, I did notice it was lowered, but I thought someone used it on track and they just lowered the car. But I had no idea that someone had done a whole new set of coilovers on the car. I'm very grateful that he was able to contact me before I spent the money to buy like another ECU to tune it. But the car still tram lines even with those blocks. maybe it's less compared to a stock 4C. I thought this was stock and I wanted to buy a stock car, drive it, get used to it, and then do the modification and see how they change. Now I have to find a stock 4C and try to compare it with this one. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the previous owner for reaching out to me. And now I'll go and enjoy the car. So see you guys on the next one.